Welcome back to TrendView Media, your lens into global developments that shape our world. Today's story is a powerful mix of activism, military intervention, humanitarian crisis, and international law. Greta Thunberg, one of the world's most recognized climate activists, has just been detained by Israeli forces while aboard a Gaza-bound aid ship. But this is more than a breaking headline. What does this tell us about the war in Gaza, the blockade, and the world's response? Let's unpack the full picture. On Sunday, June 8, 2025, the Israeli military intercepted and boarded the civilian vessel Madleen in international waters. The ship was part of the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, a group of international activists and volunteers delivering humanitarian aid to Gaza, where more than 600 days of conflict have pushed over 2 million people into a desperate hunger crisis. Aboard the ship were high-profile figures including Greta Thunberg and Rima Hassan, a member of the European Parliament. The flotilla claimed their mission was peaceful and humanitarian, carrying baby formula, food, and medical supplies. But the Israeli government labeled it a provocation, saying it breached their blockade and endangered national security. According to activists, the ship was attacked in international waters. Quadcopters hovered above, jamming communications and spraying what was described as a white paint-like substance. Passengers reported disturbing noises played over the radio, and live-streamed videos showed crew members raising their hands and struggling with eye irritation. In response, Israel shared footage showing the activists being detained, offered water and food, and calmly sitting aboard the vessel. The Israeli Foreign Ministry described the ship as a selfie yacht, aiming to score media points rather than deliver aid. Meanwhile, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition calls it a kidnapping in international waters, a violation of maritime and international law. They say the aid has been confiscated, and the volunteers detained illegally. Here's where the story gets legally and morally complex. Israel maintains a blockade around Gaza, citing national security and preventing arms smuggling to Hamas. However, human rights groups argue the blockade amounts to collective punishment, especially after Israel imposed a total humanitarian siege in March, blocking all food and aid for over 2 months. The International Court of Justice recently issued binding orders demanding unimpeded humanitarian access to Gaza. Critics argue that the seizure of the Madleen defies those legal orders and violates the freedom of navigation in international waters, a principle protected under international maritime law. As for the detainees, Israeli authorities say they'll be returned to their countries, but human rights lawyers say their detention was unlawful and politically motivated. This incident is not isolated. It reflects a growing global divide over how the Gaza crisis should be handled. Western governments are under pressure. The UN has warned that Gaza is on the brink of famine. The US has backed a new aid group called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, but aid workers report deadly chaos and looting. Some call the new delivery routes a death trap. At the same time, activists and civilians worldwide are taking matters into their own hands, by sea, by protest, by advocacy. Thunberg's involvement signals a shift. The environmental movement is merging with humanitarian and anti-war activism. Israel's reaction, including showing the activists' footage of the October 7 Hamas attack, reveals its insistence that the blockade and military actions are justified responses to terrorism. But global pressure is growing, and incidents like this only amplify scrutiny of Israeli policy in Gaza. So, what comes next? First, expect international backlash. Lawmakers in Europe, especially those aligned with Rima Hassan, will demand answers. Humanitarian groups are likely to challenge Israel's actions at the UN and international courts. Second, this could trigger more activism, not less. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition already attempted a previous voyage, reportedly targeted by a drone off the coast of Malta, and it's clear they're willing to risk everything for Gaza. Third, diplomatic relations could be strained. If nations perceive that their citizens were unlawfully detained in international waters, we may see formal diplomatic protests or legal battles. Meanwhile, Gaza's reality remains dire. The current trickle of aid is nowhere near what's needed. Humanitarian organizations continue to report widespread hunger, while children and civilians pay the highest price. This incident is about more than a boat or a blockade. It's a story of international resistance, contested legality, media manipulation, and the cost of silence. Greta Thunberg's presence only intensified the spotlight, but it's the people of Gaza who remain at the heart of this crisis. Subscribe to TrendView Media to stay informed with unbiased, in-depth analysis of the world's most pressing events. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this legal self-defense by Israel or a blatant violation of international law?